I am joined by Naftali Bennett, the Economy Minister for Israel. Thanks very much for joining us. I suppose the big controversy this week has been plans announced by Israel to appropriate around about 1,000 acres of land just south of Bethlehem in the West Bank. Your Finance Minister, Yair Lapid, has described it as damaging to Israel. US officials have said it's counterproductive. Why is Israel doing it?
Well, the Etzion bloc has always been part of Israel before the establishment of our state and afterwards. I think what we're doing and what we need to be doing is to establish two entities that govern themselves. We've got Israel and the Palestinian entity. We need to progress according to a plan that I submitted called the Stability Plan, where each of the people governs themselves. And this is what we're doing. In the Israeli-controlled areas, Israel will govern. In the Palestinian-controlled areas, the Palestinians will govern.
But when you say entity, you don't mean state. You don't envisage a Palestinian state being in the West Bank. Is that correct?
Because wherever we hand them land and pull out, we get shortly thereafter radical Islamic terror. We pulled out of the Gaza Strip back to the 1967 lines, and what we got there is a very radical regime of Hamas that shot tens of thousands of missiles on Israel. We don't want that to happen again. So this notion of creating a state and handing it over to the Arabs and hoping that somehow it'll work better than Syria does, than Gaza does, than Lebanon does, it's not working. We're not going to take that risk in the heart of Israel.
What message does this announcement of this land appropriation send to more moderate Palestinians, in particular the Palestinian Authority, which still works with the Israelis? What message does it send to them, given how frosty relations are right now?
Well, it's time that each side governs itself. It's time that we separate. We don't need this mix. We want them to govern themselves and us to govern ourselves.
And the Palestinians would want the same as a Palestinian state, an independent Palestinian state.
I understand, but again, we can't ignore the region. Look what's going on in our region. We've got Iran, Iraq, Syria. The whole area is falling apart. The only area of stability is really Israel, and we don't want to risk that. Israel is in the front line of a global war on radical Islamic terror. And we're there. And the battle that we're taking against Hamas is not unlike the battle against ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Al-Nusra. If we don't all fight together, America, Europe, Israel, against radical Islam, it's going to win. So we have to fight. What I would expect the world is to back us in this battle against radical Islam.
I think most people would say that from the Palestinians' perspective, self-government without a state is a non-starter. But moving on from that, Israel has a ceasefire in place with Hamas. It's holding so far. Do you think that Israel was right to agree to a ceasefire? Should it have carried on fighting to the end till it had wiped out Hamas, for example?
Look, sooner or later we will need to wipe out Hamas. I'm not sure now it was the right time. What we did was good. We beat Hamas. They came out with zero achievements. None of their demands have been met, and I'm very pleased with the results.
Their demands, which are also the demands of ordinary Gazans, are, for example, for a seaport, for an airport, for the free flow of goods through Gaza and into Israel. Is that ever, under any scenario, going to happen, and under what circumstances, and when?
It absolutely can happen if they agree to disarm themselves. What we're not going to do is build a fortress of terror or rebuild a fortress of terror in Gaza. If they want to thrive just like Singapore or whatever, they can't have their missiles, they can't have their terror tunnels, they have to disarm themselves. If they disarm themselves, we'd love them to thrive economically.
Now, you say that this was a win for Israel. Hamas has been claiming victory for its part. Of course, there has been an impact on the lives of people.
They can't show one achievement.
Well, they managed to stop flights to Israel for a couple of days. There has been an impact on the Israeli economy.
They had a list of demands and none of them were met.
Okay, so, but there has been an impact on Israel. There has been an impact.
Yeah.
The economic impact, we've heard from the central bank governor this morning, Karnit Flug, Finance Minister Yair Lapid, the CEO of Israel's second biggest bank, Bank Leumi, all saying, yes, the Israeli economy is being impacted, it's slowing down. Where do you see growth for the Israeli economy this year compared with where we were expecting it to go before the Gaza conflict?
Well, certainly a conflict is not good for the economy, but Israel's economy is robust. This is a hit on its growth, but we're easily going to be able to overcome it. We have very powerful engines of growth, primarily high-tech. and our high-tech continues to grow amid all the conflicts we've had, especially over the past year. We've had a wonderful year of high-tech investments, high-tech exits, and it's just growing faster and faster.
Of course, you in a previous life were a high-tech entrepreneur as well. Turkey has been one of the most vociferous critics of Israel. The now President Erdogan describing Israel as worse than Hitler, for example. I think trade is about $200 million worth for exports from Israel to Turkey. Is Turkey now kind of country non grata as far as Israel is concerned? You're quite happy to kind of see that relationship go down to zero?
No, I mean, we hoped to see a progressive Turkey, a modern Turkey. We are concerned with this Islamistic wave that it's being led into. We think it's not good for Turkey, certainly not good for our relationship. At the same time, we are retaining economic relationships with Turkish people, and hopefully someday they'll come to their senses.
Very, very briefly, you don't always see eye to eye with the Prime Minister. Is this government, a coalition, going to hold till the end, or are we going to see early elections?
I hope it holds. You know, my party is the second largest party according to all the polls, so it would be in my interest to move them up the elections, but we don't want to do it. It's not good for Israel. So if it's up to me, the elections will be held at their initial date.
Okay, and Naftali Bennett, Economy Minister, who heads up Israel's third largest party at the moment in the Knesset. Thanks very much for joining us.